Hello, and welcome to Appleton Engaged. I'm your host, Timber Smith, the DEI coordinator for the City of Appleton.
And I'm Andy Anam. I'm the communications manager for the City of Appleton.
And Appleton Engaged is a podcast that explores the many people, organizations, and resources that make our community a great place to live, work, and play. So whether you're a longtime resident or just getting to know Appleton, join us and learn more about our community together.
Absolutely, Timber. And today, again, we have an incredible guest with us on the podcast. And can you tell us more about him?
Oh, yes. You know, why do we get this lucky to get these amazing guests? That's what I'm going to say. This week's guest is Juan Corpus. Did I get that right? All right. Vice President, Diversity, Equity, Inclusion for New North, Inc. Hey, Juan, how's it going?
I'm doing well. Thank you both for having me today.
Hey, thank you for giving us some time. Could you please share a little something about yourself and what's your association with Appleton and the Fox Cities region?
Absolutely. So I'm born and raised in Green Bay. So I would consider myself a Fox Valley resident and just joined New North in February of this year. Have been a part of the community in regards to helping support the community about the last 13 years because I've seen it grow from a diversity standpoint. The story I like to tell is back in the days, we would go down to Milwaukee once a month. My dad would pack us up Saturday morning early, like 4 o'clock in the morning to beat the traffic, pack up our car with groceries for things that we couldn't get up in Green Bay. Now today you can go down University Avenue. For those that are familiar with Green Bay, you can get whatever you need. You can get pan dulce, which is sweet bread. You can go to the pandaria, the taqueria, whatever you need. You don't need to go to Appleton anymore, or to Milwaukee anymore. So seeing that community change makes me passionate about doing this type of work.
That's true. I can relate to that because I think the thing we used to have to drive for was a haircut. There was nowhere you could get a fade. You couldn't get a line in a fade. You had to go all the way to Milwaukee if you wanted to get a decent haircut. And when you got lazy, you had to just get a bald head, which is sad.
It is. And I totally agree with you because I come from India and I see that, now you don't have to travel anymore because you get everything just nearby. So that's a big welcome change from a diversity standpoint. So why don't you tell us more about what New North does?
Absolutely. So New North is an economic development organization that started in 2005, and it was created by business leaders locally within the New North region. So there's 18 counties. So we go all the way from Marinette and Florence, which is the border of Michigan and Wisconsin, all the way down to Fond du Lac and Sheboygan. That's our footprint. So very large footprint.
That's a big footprint.
And really what they wanted to do was implement economic development strategies to really attract businesses, retain businesses, and develop businesses to make this region an economic viable entity that it should be based on the resources that we have.
Can you help break that down in the layman's terms? Yeah. Like, what is that? What does that look like? What does that mean?
Yeah. So for me, from my lens, being from the DEI lens, how do we support entrepreneurs, small businesses, especially those from a diverse background? How do we create pathways for the kids that are going to school, whether they go into the trades, whether they join the workforce, or whether they go to college? How do we create those pathways? Once they graduate secondary schools or colleges, first-generation professionals, which is what I am, how do we support those and develop those folks so they stay here, so we don't have a brain drain and folks aren't moving to Milwaukee, moving to Chicago, moving out of state, because there are so many opportunities here. So looking and retaining and developing that talent that exists here and helping those businesses thrive here. So creating a University Avenue that offers different items to the community so we don't have to drive out of our region for them.
So can you give more examples?
Some examples that I'm thinking about is right now we're trying to attract international and national companies to the region. So, for instance, the New North region houses about 1.3 million citizens. Now, if you look at cities, metro cities from a population standpoint, that would put us about ranking fifth, right below, I believe, Houston.
Oh,
Wow.
So when you think about the resources that exist in our region, with the forest up north, with the Great Lakes, with the talent, there are so many reasons for companies to work here,
right.
to come in the backyard. I mean, we have so many national companies that are actually placed here. I think at last count, we had about 75 national and global companies that do work within the New North region. So how do we keep them here? How do we continue to attract them? Because we certainly have the room, we do have the talent, but we need to create these pathways to make it seamless for them.
So, are there any challenges to those pathways you see, like, which we can work differently to attract them?
Yeah, I think, from a DEI standpoint, we always hear about talent shortages. I think the challenge with that is how are we keeping the folks we do have that do exist in those communities right now? How are we creating an environment so they do feel welcome? So simply opening up the door and saying, we accept everybody, that's great, but that's step one. How are we developing those folks that we have? And they're now being created into C-suite professionals. They're representative in our councils, in leadership councils. They're owning the companies. They're working as a C-suite executive. So those are some of the challenges that I see, is we don't see enough of the DEI population in those seats yet.
I can see that, and would agree with you wholeheartedly. What you've started recently, right? And I would think that, are you still in your exploratory phase where you're kind of learning about the different counties and who's out here? What have you found while you're in your exploratory phase and learning about the counties and the stakeholders and the individuals? What has been something you have found that pleasantly surprised you, and something where you see opportunity?
So I would say, from a pleasantly surprised, I think it's the abundance of organizations and folks that are doing this work and the allies. I didn't see that growing up, so I'm great. So I'm thankful to have these, and I'll call them co-conspirators, partners in crime, family, whatever term you want to use. I'm glad to have this network to lean on and collaborate with, because I'm trying to work smarter, not harder. I don't want to redevelop anything that already exists.
Right.
I want to be a connector and a collaborator. Mm-hmm. The challenge is, I think we're still very siloed. We have a number of different organizations that might be doubling up or leaning into spaces that they shouldn't be, or I shouldn't say shouldn't be, but they should be collaborating with. So say Andy and I have in our organization and we're working on B, when theoretically Andy can work on A and I can work on C, and maybe there's another organization working on B, and let them do it. We don't need to necessarily, we can support, but we don't need to do our own thing. And so I think there's an opportunity to collaborate better. I think there's an opportunity to get more corporations involved to support, whether it's with their dollars, volunteer time. So those would be some of the things that I'm thinking about from a opportunity standpoint. I'd like to say opportunity versus challenge.
So when you say that, then that takes me to my next question. That is, what is the biggest misconception you have about your field of expertise when it talks about diversity, equity, inclusion? What is that misconception people have in their mind?
So I would say language. Here's the example. If I say the word bread, Andy and Timber, what are you envisioning when I say the word bread?
I'm thinking the first place my mind went to was white Wonder Bread.
Okay.
Right, yeah. Bread, it could be bread, my earning bread, or you can say food as a food, yeah.
Okay. And I would say money. So even at the word bread, we are not at a consistent understanding to start the discussion. So when I think about DEI, there are so many misconceptions about what DEI means that we need to start at just understanding where we need to be at the same starting point. And I think sometimes frequently we're not. And it becomes very divisive.
Agree. Totally
I agree
agree.
wholeheartedly.
So language, I think, for me is one of the biggest hurdles.
That and yeah, I think there's a misconception because of language and where we're starting from. Me personally, I do think there's another challenge out there of the idea that this work means there's winners and losers instead of it being something where everyone can win. It's good for all of us.
It's not a pie. It's a
not
potluck.
pie. Yes. So, can you share a narrative that will help our listeners understand the importance of your organization? Some of the things that you've done, some wins. Because I know some good things that have happened that New North has been part of and have helped sponsor, but our listeners need to know.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll go recent and then I'll go a little backwards. So we recently just allocated money from a micro grant. And this is going to be to support organizations that support diverse businesses. And so when we say diverse, we're thinking ethnically diverse, we're thinking women-owned, veteran-owned, queer-owned businesses. We just allocated grant funds to 19 different organizations that are going to have a variety of different initiatives or events to support these different businesses throughout the region, not just in Appleton, not just in Green Bay, but throughout the region. That's something that we just allocated and will be soon putting a press release out about. The other thing that we are currently working on, which I just got off a meeting on as we're developing, it's a hub called WIDEN, WIDEN, stands for Wisconsin Diverse Enterprise Network. This will be a statewide hub that will house all diverse business owners, or diverse businesses, We're going to be asking those same ethnically diverse, women-owned, veteran-owned, queer-owned businesses to create a profile that will be a statewide directory for anybody in the state to find. So if you want to have an event and you want to support this community, you can go ahead and type in, I want an Asian venue, I want a Black caterer, I want a Latino photographer. You'll have that ability to do that right now, and we really don't. It's really word of mouth if I wanted to find those businesses.
It really is. There's not a good, the city of Appleton, credit to Karen Nelson, does have a diversity resource guide, but it was done pre-COVID, and the world has shifted since then. Mm-hmm. So, and I'm not sure. I feel like there's better places for it to be housed. Mm-hmm. Like there's better organizations.
Yeah, so we're working on that network right now, and we're hoping to roll that out through the summer. We actually are just talking about what does that marketing look like as we are trying to get some early adopters created into the hub.
So how are you disseminating this much information? Are you using a website? If somebody's looking for, let's say, Latino photographer or caterer, so where exactly they need to go and find this information?
Yeah, so the hub is not open yet, but it will be called widen.biz, will be the URL. And yes, it'll be a website where folks can filter specifically whatever region. So if somebody in Wausau is looking for all the diverse businesses within their area, they'll be able to find all those within a certain mile region. Or if they're specifically looking for, I want a veteran themed event and they want to support all veteran owned, they'll be able to filter it that way as well. I think one of the opportunities is going to be to get these businesses to put their profile up there, because there's a lot of benefits for
Absolutely.
them. Another benefit that we haven't talked about yet is being able to push resources to these businesses. A lot of businesses, especially in those communities, don't have the access to some of the resources that some of our majority businesses have. So when we're thinking about training, when we're thinking about grants, we can push that information out to them in a more narrow pathway than right now. It's, a lot of word of mouth. If you don't belong to a chamber, an ethnic chamber, I think it's hard for those businesses to get that information.
So our listeners, if you're listening to this, keep your eye out for widen.biz, and please do register your business on that. Thank you so much. And are there any upcoming initiatives, events, or engagement opportunities we can look forward to?
So we just had our huge summit, which is kind of the crowning jewel for the year. We just had that last week with almost 600 leaders I'll say that
Wasn't that at Lambeau in the atrium?
that was at Lambeau at the atrium. So if you're a Packer fan, you got to enjoy that.
That's it. The pictures look good.
Awesome.
Yeah. And so a couple of other engagement opportunities. One of the things that I'm trying to do as I'm working with and meeting organizations and people is understand what are the different community events that are happening that are celebrating our communities. So I'm trying to update our diversity calendar. So for instance, we will have 4 different Juneteenth events throughout the region. And that's just what I know of. That's not to say that there's other counties within our region that are having them, but right now I have to go like into Facebook or Google and say looking for Juneteenth in Appleton. So I'm hoping to kind of build up this our page off of our website to house that type of information. And it's great that we're having concurrent events on the same weekend throughout the region, because that just means that there's so much to give. You know, I don't think I think we've already passed the point where we're saying, okay, Juneteenth is week A, the Latino has week B. We're past that.
Right.
I kind of look at it as if you go into Chicago, every neighborhood has something going on.
Right.
They're not, Wrigleyville doesn't care about River North. They're kind of doing their own thing because they have the need and demand to do it.
Right. There's the capacity. That makes sense.
So is there anything the community can do to be more helpful?
So I'm going to borrow some of these things that I have from a podcast that I've listened to. So I'm going to go backwards. Shop local. So when we think about our region, shop local if you can. I know it's easy. I'm an Amazon shopper, so I'll be the first to admit it. But being in this role, I see the power of shopping local. And I think that's one of the things for me that I've realized. Be a good person. When we think about these diverse communities, and when we really break it down, we need to self-reflect, and are we being a good person? Spread the word, whether it's communities, whether it's a diverse business, especially restaurant. I mean, food brings everybody together, so if you got some good eating and it's a diverse business owner, pass that along. There's a couple of spots that I'm ready to hit down in this area just based on some information that I've heard. And then volunteer. There are always opportunities to volunteer, whether it's for a community event, whether it's for these organizations that do exist, which I will say as well, one of my wish list items is to cultivate a list of the different organizations within our region, what region they represent, and what population they're trying to serve and what they're doing, again, as just another method to get out there and support our region.
Is there any volunteer opportunities for New North? Or if someone's listening to this podcast and they're thinking, how do I get involved? It seems like an organization I would like to do or would like to serve.
Absolutely. So New North started their DEI journey in 2020, similar to a lot of companies. And there was a number of work streams that they created originally. I'm re-envisioning what those work streams look like, and I'm going to need folks to lean in and volunteer. So when we think about community, there's an opportunity for folks to be a part of our community work stream. When we think about K through 12, we have 90 school districts in our 18-county region. There's an opportunity there to get involved and be a part of that discussion. When we think about entrepreneurs and small businesses, abundant amount of opportunities to have a discussion, especially if you want to provide guidance, because there's always panels and resource opportunities there, or if you want to highlight your business, it's another way to get involved. So yes, I would say there's always opportunities for me to kind of help lean you into one of our work streams that we're reimagining.
And who would these potential volunteers reach out to, and how do they reach out?
Absolutely. So they can reach out to me, Juan Corpus. My email is Juan, Juan, .Corpus, Corpus, @thenewnorth.com. Or you could go on to our website, which is newnorth.com, and you can find me there as well.
I'm going to be sure to put that information in our podcast notes. So this, of course, is that time, Juan. Do you have anybody you'd like to shout out?
I got a couple of folks. So definitely the city of Appleton for starting this podcast. I think it's a great opportunity to, again, highlight the organizations and what they're doing. And I think everybody has the same goal in mind. We want our community to be a good community, to be a welcoming community. So we need to do that by spreading the word. To my host, thank you for inviting me and letting me be part of the first set of folks to share their information. Definitely to New North, the staff, Barbara Lemieux, and the rest of my group. They've been very welcoming to me. I spent 23 years at Humana prior to joining this, so definitely a pivot for me, but no qualms with joining New North. Just a great group of folks. And then I would say just the folks that I've met that are executive directors or volunteers for these community organizations. I want to give a shout out to them because volunteering myself, I know that it's taking bandwidth away from your family, from your free time, whether you grill or fish or go outside, and it takes time. And sometimes it can be draining. So kudos to those folks that are doing that work and that have been doing the work and haven't gotten the recognition for doing that work. And the people in the past that laid the seeds or laid the pavement down for some of the work that we're all continuing to do.
Yes, very much so. All right. Well, podcast listeners, you already know we are a work in progress. Thank you for tuning in and spending time with us. If you would like to be a guest, or if we are looking for feedback, we would like to become the best podcast we can possibly be, please reach out to us at diversity@appleton.org. Once again, that is diversity@appleton.org. Also, take some time and subscribe to this podcast. Whatever way you're listening to it, if there's an opportunity to subscribe, please subscribe. And lastly, leave us a review. Let us know how we're doing. It's super important because we can't be the best if you don't tell us how to be the best. So, and we do take it very seriously. We appreciate it.
Absolutely, Timber. And this was another wrapping up of another captivating episode. And thank you for tuning in. And until next time, stay engaged and keep spreading the light of compassion and community. Goodbye.